Hello and welcome to this spoiler discussion of Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, the PS5 launch game that's also available on PS4, of course. This is your one and only warning. This entire episode is devoted to discussing the game with full spoilers. Alarm bells ring. Please come back after you've played it. Thank you very much. My name's Dylan Black. Joining me for this spoiler discussion, Ashley Holby.
Hey Dylan, excited to be here to talk about Spider-Man Harlem Edition.
Yeah, sure. Also here, Ciaran Marchant.
Hey, it's me, the crane operator, the who calls out for Spider-Man all the time. It's Spider-Man over here.
Wow, that's like your
No, it's
New York accent.
Granada.
Yeah, gotta use a little bit of work. It's fun.
It's
all right,
fine.
so Marvel Spider-Man, Miles Morales, of course. It's stars Miles instead of Peter Parker. It's a spin-off, expansion, side adventure, whatever you want to call it. It is a sequel to Marvel's Spider-Man that came out in 2018. Of course, it takes place in a weird period of time, sometime after that game. It doesn't
6 months.
really. Is it 6 months? Is that what they say?
Yeah, it's 6 months.
Okay, because me and Ash were trying to work this out. We're like, oh, it's set at Christmas.
Yeah, no.
When did the DLC end? Like, I don't know. It's all very confusing.
It's 6 months post.
So before we dive into the key story beats, and I'm probably going to go with the ending first, what was everyone's overall thoughts on this, Ash? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, it's pretty great. Obviously, I love the first game, so I knew I was going to love this, and I did. You know, Miles is a fun character. Very interesting that you get to explore his beginnings when in the base game you've got Peter several years in, very experienced. So it's a nice thing, and it makes, I guess, the leveling up aspect of the game make a little bit more sense. But yeah, getting to know all the people in Harlem and all the people in Miles's circle was a lot of fun and enjoyable, and like there was enough twists and turns of what I knew of Miles so far from the limited amount of stuff I've encountered him in that the story never felt like it was retreading anything, you know. So a lot of fun, and his power set's obviously brilliant for this type of game. So yeah, pretty great.
Ciaran, how do you feel about it?
I really enjoyed it. I really think this game definitely capitalizes on the success of the recent Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse in terms of how much the greater community kind of wrapped around Miles, and that grew the character of Miles a lot more. And it was brought into this game even more. I love every aspect of this game. I really enjoy the length of this game. Like, I think it cut a lot of the fat out of the original Spider-Man game, because the original Spider-Man game's plot was maybe a little bit convoluted and all over the place at times. It was pretty nice and straightforward. I love me a bit of random Troy Baker, just in any game, so I didn't realize he was in this game until the opening, so I was pretty excited for that. And overall,
I didn't even realize it was in the game. Yeah,
you didn't realize
Did you
Troy Baker was. Did you just
not even
listen?
hear his voice?
Did you not even hear his voice for like 2 seconds? About Troy Baker, there he is.
No, I was so captured inside the world of the game, I wasn't paying attention to
Wowza.
who was voicing who.
Yeah.
All I saw was this science dude.
This science dude. But it also gave another look at a different relationship that Miles has. I have always really enjoyed Miles' relationship with the Prowler, his uncle, and I'm really glad that that featured in this game in a different light compared to many of the other stories we've had about those two.
Yeah. I think this, so as a package, I think this is overall a better, more concise package as both a story and gameplay than the first game. I think the first game fell into a lot of trappings of typical open world stuff where, you know, they put a little bit too much in because it's an open world game, you gotta have heaps of stuff, but then also felt even in the campaign missions there was some stuff that was just campaign missions to introduce side missions that just weren't super interesting. Whereas I think overall the side missions all lead up to making the finale feel more impactful and important, and all of the random collectibles you're given all make sense, and they don't feel like too random to be doing, just thrown in because it's an open world game. Like even the return of the pigeons in this one is only like one mission instead of fucking 20 or whatever it was in the first game, and this kind of thing. So overall, I think this is a much better and package than the first game. And emotionally, I was a lot more invested in this story. I think because Peter Parker in the first game is obviously like, he's been around for years and he's supposed to have been around for 8 years or something like that. And Miles in this one, we're getting that whole hero story where we get to see him learn how to use his powers. We get to see him learn how to keep the secret identity or not keep the secret identity, of course, by the time you get to the end of it, whatever direction you want to take that. And all of that is just, when done well, superhero stories where people are having to learn how to use and interact with their friends and family once they've got powers is always going to be some of the most interesting stuff you can see in superhero stuff, comic book stuff.
I don't know what it is, and maybe it's just because of how often it's been done over the years, but I am super numb to Peter Parker's motivations to be a superhero. I'm just kind of...
It's because do you not remember? It's because his fucking uncle dies. And then
I remember why. Sorry, I remember why. It's just...
With great power comes great responsibility.
But that's the thing. We've seen that, we've heard that, we've talked about it so much. It's just, I'm very numb to that feeling, whereas this, I feel a very kind of, I don't want to say wholesome, but a very deep connection with Miles, because Miles feels very integrated with his community. He feels very integrated with all the people he interacts with. And I guess that's just because of his family dynamic and having, the knowledge that we do of his father in the past game. And then everything that happens in this game that is more focused on community and everything in Harlem and bringing people together.
I definitely feel like it's a thing. So, I want to start with the ending because, for a start, it's not a particularly long game. If you want to get the platinum, like me and Ash have already gotten, and I assume Ciaran's going to be getting soon.
I'm on the way.
Yeah. Hold on. Ash hasn't got it yet.
I haven't got the platinum.
Yeah, okay.
No.
But I assume you're all going to get it. It's like playing through this the second time. If you just skip cutscenes, you can beat the game in 2 to 3 hours. So it's not particularly long. But if you do it that way, what you do miss is when you get to the ending. If you've done all the side missions as you've gone, all of the people that crowd around him at the end and kind of protect his secret identity are from the side missions and are the people he's come to know and protect in Harlem. So it really strengthens that theme of if New York Spider-Man's Peter Parker, then Harlem Spider-Man is definitely Miles Morales by the end of this game. And that's kind of what the game's about. I want to go with the ending because I think I was crying by the end of this game. I thought the relationship that they build up between these two characters. I meant to blank on her name. What was her name? Not the Tinkerer,
Finn.
but Finn. Yeah, that's it. Between her and Miles, in a very short time, I feel like they do a pretty good job of making you understand, especially with that one flashback sequence. You get a good understanding of how they grew up together and how close they were. And then when you get to the end of the game and everything Miles does and he's willing to kind of sacrifice himself to he's already willing to do that as such a fresh faced superhero. And then when they go up into the sky and she says let go or just let go or something like that. That was it. I think my fucking heart cracked at that moment. I think that was the most impactful moment out of any of Insomniac's Spider-Man moments so far for me. That particular moment. So I love the ending. It kind of makes me just want more Miles more than anything Peter. It just made me appreciate Miles so much more. How do you feel about the ending, Ash?
Yeah, it was great. Obviously, the story of two best friends who kind of are at odds against each other. It's kind of a classic tale, but told with a fresh twist. And I feel like Finn never was really a bad person. It's just
no, she was out for revenge. Something shocking.
She was out for revenge. She was kind of
she was blinded by revenge.
Focused.
Really,
she was blinded by revenge. And right at the end, she turned back. It's a classic Darth Vader taking out the Emperor and that kind of stuff. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that whole ending of them going up into the sky and everything, heartbreaking, and Miles upset that she's not there anymore while he's on the ground.
Yeah. It's what about Finn?
Oof.
Yeah.
What about Finn? Yeah.
Ciaran, how do you feel about that?
I thought the end sequence and the ending itself was all really good. Finn had slightly annoyed me towards the end of the game in terms of just how much the rage just blinded her just to not to listen to anything Miles was saying was just a teeny tiny bit
I mean,
frustrating.
her
But
brother
Yeah,
died. Like, I understand.
But, you know, she was believing him the whole entire time, and then the thing that tipped her over the edge was he stopped her from killing the rhino. He's like, no, I'm not going to believe anything you ever say again. Just because you stopped me from killing this dude.
Well, I mean, I never
Destroyed all the evidence.
I never took it like that. I took it as she was already pissy as soon as she found out that the reason they got captured was because Miles told his uncle what was happening, and then she kind of just kept quiet throughout that section of the level because they had to work together to escape. Like I thought she was always kind of going to spit it with him once they got out. I don't think it was the rhino. I just think it was.
Kind of was Rhino. It
I
kind
know,
of was she was
kinda.
about to kill him.
I think
and
that was the camel,
Miles,
the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
not the camel that broke the
If
straw.
that was the part that caused
They
her
both
to
kinda
like
work.
beat the shit out of him. But I still reckon if they just walked out, she would have like punched him in the face and said, "Stay the fuck away from me," or something like that. That's how I always thought that scene was going to play out. Like, there's that section where you escape from the Prowler and you're crawling under the ducks, and then she's like, "Oh my god, you laid into me," or whatever. Like, as soon as that was happening in my mind, I'm thinking, "Oh my god, she's gonna punch me in the face as soon as I get out of here," or something. So I wasn't shocked by the sudden like angry
It
turn.
did lead to her angry turn. It did lead to the scene that actually got me was him having to call Genki to come get him, and then going home and stuff, and his
To his
mum
mother?
finding out.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that scene got me a lot more than I don't know. I didn't. For me, in terms of the Spider-Man games, I can't. The ending of this game doesn't quite compare to Aunt May's moment in the end of Spider-Man 1. Like, for me, that was like, I was in tears about that one, not so much.
Yeah, I feel like I love that as well. I feel like that is also because we have so much attachment to Aunt May as a character from
I completely
years
agree
of
with
comics
that.
and
It's,
iterations. So I don't
but it
think
was
she
still-
she didn't die in the movies, right?
No.
Did she die in the third one? Like the original
No.
one, maybe? No?
Oh,
Okay.
maybe. I haven't seen Spider-Man 3 in a very long time
neither.
because
For some reason, I just have a
nobody-
feeling. But
nobody wants to remember it, but
No.
you know. But it was just a case of, I guess the ending very much reminds me of the Raimi moment in, is it Spider-Man 2, where in the train car where they all kind of cover for him?
yeah, in
Yeah,
Spider-Man
I think.
2.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2, like that, and that reminisce, and I really enjoyed that moment because I really liked all the characters that we like made friends with and met throughout the side missions and exploring the game. So, yeah, there was definitely. I think for me, the true ending wasn't. I really like. There's something in the last 12 months, 12 to 24 months of gaming where prologues have become even more important than the actual endings.
Epilogues, you mean?
Epilogues. Wow, fucking prologues. It's like the same. It's like they're opposites.
No, they're not the the same
They're
idea,
the
but
same
they're
thing,
definitely
opposite.
but
opposites.
Yeah.
they're the same thing. Just one's a pro and one's epi. Epilogues, like for me, like I had with Persona 5 Royal, the end of the start of this year had a very kind of strong epilogue for me, and I think the epilogue of this one is going around and collecting the postcards of Miles's dad, like and those messages, were just even like it's crazy how those, even though you know it's written like that, so it's supposed to, but like how much sense everything Miles's dad said made context to the position Miles was in at the time. It was just like how much it meant to Miles, and even Miles's reactions through them, where like there's different bits where after some of the recordings he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna need a minute," after hearing that and stuff like that. It's it was heartbreaking.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts on the ending then, Ash?
I mean, I'm really grateful that it wasn't part of the main plot. You know, they could have easily added as like a side mission you do by random. You go around to do the scavenger hunt. Really grateful they put it at the end of the game. At which point I think I'd cleared everything else out. So
Yeah.
it was that and get the bodega cat. Those are the two things that need to be done once it's finished. So yeah, just swinging around the city, finding these last little things, and like, yeah, it was obviously a very moving thing. It's crazy that we spent obviously all this time with Miles, and then we find out even more about him through these postcards, and find out more about his dad that we only got like a glimpse of in the first game. So It was. I imagine for someone who probably has lost their dad, it probably would hit even more emotionally. It's interesting. Obviously, this year the movie Onward came out, which has a very similar theme of sons trying to get in contact with their passed away father and that kind of thing, and messages from kind of beyond and that kind of thing. So yeah, that was a really good message and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think another thing that stood out to me in this game is his mother, of course, Rio Morales, who I don't remember seeing. If we did in the original game, like I know we saw his dad, obviously, and if we did see his mum, she may have been so brief that it didn't stick around.
We saw her at the funeral, but it was very
not big enough to stand out. But obviously, she's a big part of this, and she's one of my favorite parts of the game as well, because not only is she this like super lovable mother that you have in the game, like you can have you can prod her in the kitchen at the start, and like just the way she interacts with Miles and what's the other kid's name?
Genki.
Genki, yeah. The way she interacts with both of them is great. And then I also love that she's running for office in Harlem, and like how committed she is to that, and that plays an important part. But also like how they didn't make it something too ridiculous, like she's running to be mayor of New York or something. No, like similar to Miles, she's just running for a place where she can look after her home, her neighborhood, because at the start of the game, of course, they're moving into, I think it was her grandmother's house, right? That was
grandmother's apartment, who's moved back to Puerto Rico. Yeah,
following the events of the original game after Miles' father's death, of course. So she was another one of my favorite parts, and definitely stood out also in the what was it called? Like the election, like the Christmas Day parade thing or whatever that's called. Like how as soon as everything starts going crazy, in that one moment too, there's a couple things where Miles obviously sounds super worried about his mother, especially when Genki's like, "Oh, I'm on the way to the hospital." Just the way the line delivered from Miles, where he's like, "Oh my god, what's happened?" Because of course, like it's a very similar situation to how his father died.
He even says it before.
He's like, this scares me or whatever.
He's like tensed up,
yeah. So, and you can definitely feel that fear within him during that entire scene. And how does everyone feel about that scene? Because I feel like that's the most. Well, you could say like the opening scene's like super action heavy, which it is, but I feel like that's probably the most action heavy. You got the massive explosions, and then the cinematic, of course, the cinematic bridge scene. I felt like was the most cinematic moment of the entirety of the game.
I think it didn't have the same effect because we'd already seen it. Like I was like,
what, like on the gameplay trailer?
What, the bridge bit? Yeah,
the bridge bit. We'd already seen the bridge bit. Like the only thing that was different about the bridge bit was the reveal that it was.
Did you guys have an inkling that was the reveal?
Oh yeah, like very early, early.
That was going to be that she was the Tinkerer.
Yeah.
No, I didn't see it coming.
Oh really?
I think the thought crossed my mind like maybe 5-10 minutes before it actually happened. I'm like,
you know what the other thing
when they popped up.
The other thing I noticed though was because I was doing all the side stuff I could between every campaign mission, it felt so much more spaced out. So like I'd seen her at the start where she comes to the dinner party or whatever. I was like, oh yeah, and then I spent like a couple hours doing other stuff. And then by the time I see her at the cafe,
I think it was at the dinner party. I was like, "Oh, she's the Tinkerer."
Why? What was she doing?
I don't know. There was something she said or did, or maybe it was just like my 500 IQ brain was like, "Man, this is it."
I think so because we hadn't even seen the Tinkerer up until that point. The only time I'd seen,
but that was the thing. It was beforehand, and I think it was a combination of us seeing the E3 gameplay footage of the Tinkerer and knowing that the Tinkerer is a girl. She's about that height. And then there was a couple of things that she kind of says or skirts around answering in the dinner scene that's like, oh, you don't want to answer that because you're the Tinkerer.
See, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know if the Tinkerer was supposed to be a male or female character or if it's supposed to be an old or young guy.
Yeah.
Or I had no clue. I was just open for anything. And I knew the Tinkerer in the comics was some random fucking C villain.
Just an old guy.
Yeah, some thing. So I definitely wasn't expecting it to be her because she's not the Tinkerer in the comic books.
She's not the classic Tinkerer,
Insomniac's changed things up, which I think works well because comic book villains are often kind of boring unless they're more directly related, in my opinion.
A lot of those were made in the 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
Especially Spider-Man ones. So they're like white dudes.
Yeah. But changing it up, it's a lot, makes that character from a C villain into a lot more interesting of a villain. And of course, I think the other problem that in something I had with this game was Miles Morales' pool of villains, not Spider-Man villains, but his own villains, very shallow compared to Peter, because he hasn't been around as long, so they couldn't go picking for.
And there can
stuff.
only be so many villains in one city, even if it's a really big city. Like even Daredevil crosses over,
especially
with Spider-Man villains
in a city that doesn't age. Am I right?
It's been like what? It's only been like 6 months. Like I don't know.
No, but like in the comics.
Oh yeah.
Nobody ever ages, so nobody ever gets too old to be a supervillain.
Yeah. Why? So we talked about the ending of the game. Do you want to loop back to how did everyone feel about the way it opened? Like, especially his interactions with Peter Parker as well. Just seeing them be duo Spider-Man, the brief time we get between the both of them, and of course like some brand new Peter Parker stuff since we been a while since played The City That Never Sleeps. If you all played the DLC, yeah. Ash, how did you feel about the opening?
Love the opening. I just replayed it like not long before this. Just him getting off the subway into Harlem, the music.
Oh, it's so good. The two times where you're like, I think it's that like the opening, that open section, and the ending when he's walking down the street with music. I'm like, fuck, I love these moments. Like they're really cool.
They found the perfect music for the game. For Miles, the setting up the mural and meeting what's her name for the first time?
Haley.
Yeah,
Haley. Yes.
Can I say shout out for like representation in this game, because I knew there was going to be a lot of cultural representation, but as soon as there was a hearing impaired character, I was like, fuck, that is it's really good in this kind of game. Like it's
also
really good in general.
Also, the fact that Miles, it's never like a thing. Miles is just like. Just starts talking.
He just knows ASL.
He just knows. Yeah, he knows ASL. It's when Genki's like, "What the fuck?" You know ASL. He's like, "Yeah, it's totally normal." Like,
I gotta say, honestly, that moment made me feel bad as a person, because it's not often. Honestly, it's kind of weird that it doesn't happen more often, because I feel like superheroes were created to kind of make you feel bad as people. Like they're supposed to inspire you to. You know what I mean? Like to a degree, they're supposed to inspire us to be better humans. I feel like that's really the idea of comic book superheroes. But honestly, in that moment where he was just like, "Oh, I just know it in case," also, basically as I'm just trying to be a good human being. For whatever reason, in that exact moment, my brain was like, "Fuck, I'm shit." Like, why don't I ever do anything like that and try to be a good person? I don't know. Anyway, yes, that was great. She was a great character. Hope she returns.
Yeah, and then obviously. The build up to eventually Miles obviously being his own, but like the whole Rhino section, a good introduction and refresher for
mechanics. The
good mechanics, like swinging through the city first.
It starts exactly the same as the original, where it's like just press R2 to swing as you're flying out of a building.
Yeah, and that Rhino chase was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
going through the mall, that nothing like that was in the first game.
No,
I can remember. That was a lot of fun, so
yeah. It's so funny because the Rhino chase just reminded me when I played it for the first time, because it's like, I'll try and like dodge stuff to do less damage or whatever, but then of course I was like, I'm trying to. But then there's a trophy for crashing through things.
There's a trophy for it.
Yeah, there's a trophy for crashing, which I didn't find until later.
No, I did it in my second playthrough, but I was like, what? The game literally tells me to dodge stuff, and I'm pretty sure I dodged nearly everything. I was like, I fucking ace this. Yeah. And then it's like, I crashed stuff for a trophy. I'm like, fuck off. The thing that stood out to me though in that sequence that I didn't see anything like this in the original, because of course now we have two Spider-Men, is as you're fighting, even at the start, so you're fighting the goons, like just having Peter Parker in the background fighting Rhino, I thought that was epic. And then also when you're going through the mole sequence, the fact that as you're steering him, if you actually pay attention, Peter's like up ahead, lifting stuff, like steering stuff out of the way.
The most obvious is he lifts the train
set up. Yeah, like I thought all of that was really cool and just stood out as like not having seen that sort of stuff.
I really appreciated the opening because in general. Well, first, I didn't know how much Peter Parker was going to be in this game.
It was in it more than I thought, honestly.
A lot more than I thought. I thought he was just going to be somehow written out before the game even started. Like, they were just going to open with, Peter's not there. But I think they had this really great opening to kind of establish how Miles was feeling about being Spider-Man, which I was like, oh, we're super early in Miles' kind of confidence levels of being Spider-Man. He's still questioning himself. Cool. That's a really interesting point to start at. And then Rhino is always one of my favorite of Spider-Man's villains, just because I love the banter between Peter Parker and Rhino all the time. So to have the banter between Rhino, Peter Parker, and Miles going all at the same time was just a pleasure overall, just to play through and enjoy. So I really love that opening set piece.
He's like the perfect opening villain too, because he's always someone you can have an excuse for having escaped, because he's just a big dude who'll just smash through shit. Yep. So you're going to always have a reason for him to escape, and he's a good introduction to, like, just get someone to smash a bunch of shit. Like, he's not 2C villain, he's not A villain.
And you kind of, his mechanics a little bit. Like he's one of those kind of stereotypical bosses where it's like, oh, I just need to dodge out of the way when he's charging at me. Like, I just need to crash him into stuff and then bash him around a little bit.
He's literally like fighting Croc in Arkham Asylum, basically.
And Bane in Arkham Asylum as well.
Yeah. It's the same sort of stuff.
Yeah.
My one big negative for this game is I do think Troy Baker's character is shit. Like, straight up.
Oh, it's
shit.
It's actually hot. It's actually really bad. Like, it wasn't even like it wasn't like freaking Spider-Man itself. Almost like the original Spider-Man game almost had too many villains going on at the same time. Like, it was,
but like, it nearly.
But that's
like,
very Spider-Man though.
But that's very Spider-Man. But this one was like, okay, I'm cool with. I would honestly be cool if it was mainly the Tinker is the main bad guy, with your B bad guys as Rhino, who's randomly interrupting, and having more run-ins with the Prowler.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would, like, part of me wants there to be more run-ins with the Prowler when Miles doesn't know who the Prowler is. But no?
Oh, no.
Because the Prowler finds out who Miles is very quickly, very early on.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's like, it doesn't mean that he.
I appreciated that their version of the Prowler wasn't Into the Spider-Verse, just the same.
Yes.
Like, because there's obviously a lot of Into the Spider-Verse inspirations with this, and I feel like if they'd done the Prowler similar to how he's done in Into the Spider-Verse, it would have just felt super same.
Run-ins with the Prowler where the Prowler knows who Spider-Man is, but he's trying to play off and, like, just Spider-Man's getting in the way randomly of stuff happening. Because I feel like they were just like, we have this other corporation to be. It's like we have this other, like, we have Roxxon, who is going to be the opposition to the Underground. So we need somebody to be the face of Roxxon, but at the same time, we're not going to really build them up enough or give them enough time to really.
Well, my thing is, like, do we need an evil face to Roxxon when you could have had the same storyline happen without actually having to seen the villain? You could have just had it as a anonymous. You could have just like. I don't think you needed.
There always needs to be an evil CEO. It's very necessary.
I think
someone to direct all their hate at.
Yeah, because I think it was very much that Finn's hate was directed at him. Like, that was...
He
was specifically responsible for...
Yeah, but I don't think I needed to meet him and to have him be in the game as much to understand her hatred. Like, I feel like you could have had all of her scenes play out exactly the same, and then I still would have understood why she hated him. You could have just got the same thing happening without ever having to try and build up his villain to be something special and have Troy Baker
I think he was never built up. That was the thing.
Well,
he
showed up at the start, and then he shows up at different points throughout the game, but that's it.
Yeah.
He's the thing that misses out because of the cut down runtime of this game. Like, that's just, even though everything else is given plenty of time within the runtime, he's just cut down a little bit and not given that kind of... And also, Krieger is a character that not many people would have established knowledge of.
Well, I don't know who the fuck it is.
You know who he reminds me of? Justin Hammer from Iron
Justin
Man.
Hammer, I was thinking that as well. From
very similar.
Yeah, very. But that's if you had just put in, like, Oscorp in that same role, it would have just been, oh yeah, I know who freaking Oscorp are. Like, I know them as a company.
Which you could have done that. And that's what I mean.
But they didn't want to.
Yeah, but they could have done that and just like I still feel like they could have told the same story.
It could have, you know what? They could have done that and then had Oscorp and then have the story of this game link into the after credits scene.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
No,
like,
but then Miles can't like take out the CEO if it's Oscorp.
yeah, but he doesn't.
But he
at the
doesn't
end
have
anyway.
to take out the CEO.
Like he doesn't at the end of the
No,
game.
but it makes everybody feel good when they finish the game.
No,
The
but like
bag-
even if where it's like, okay, Oscorp
No, you guys
has
are wrong.
Oscorp even if you read it, so Oscorp has made these reactors and then they're using them to fuel Osborn himself is using it to fuel why am I blanking on his son's name?
Harry Osborn.
Harry Osborn, yeah. Osborn is using it to kind of fuel Harry's recovery and stuff with these reactors, and that was his real reason for doing it. I'd like that. That gives it a tied-in story for it to
Everything
be
doesn't need to be called back to Oscorp.
No, but it doesn't. It wasn't. I don't know. I think it's easier to explain that.
I think it's better that Miles has his own evil company to battle against.
But you need to if you're going to give his own evil company, you need to build that evil company a bit more.
Let's talk about the end credit scene. Let's talk about where we think it's going as we head towards wrap this up. Then, so the after credit scene is not Harry. What's the
Oswald?
Norman Osborn.
Norman Osborn.
Norman.
God,
That's it. Norman Osborn. Right.
Norman
So
Osborn.
it's Norman Osborn walking into Harry Osborn in a fucking back to tank or equivalent.
Which he was in the first.
Which he was in the first one. Like, if you play the first game, which obviously I assume you have,
Did you just wait? Sorry. Did you just call it a back to tank?
Yeah. You like caught onto that like 10, 15 seconds later. That's fine.
I was like, wait a minute, that's Star Wars.
Yeah. So I got to throw out a reference every now and then. Like if you played the first game, obviously you learned that Harry got sick and he got taken away, and Peter and him were friends at one stage. And he's so sick that his father has like put a lot of money and effort into trying to find a cure for him. And after the credit sequence shows Harry like floating like first person view in this tank, and Norman comes in, and then even though the doctor says the process isn't done yet or something along those sorts of lines, similar to that, Norman says, no, we're going to take him out. The other notable thing in this scene is that there's a bunch of lizards in fucking containers as well.
I'm guessing that you didn't watch the scene with captions on then.
Because it is Dr. Connors.
It's Dr. Connors.
It's Dr. Connors.
Oh, is that the doctor? Okay.
The captions, it's the doctor and the scientist in that room is Connors.
Oh my god. Okay. Oh yeah, I see it
for
now.
comic fans, turns into lizards.
Yeah. Okay. So I just
lizard.
opened up
Yeah.
the video now, and with the credit, they've got it open, and yeah, Kurt Connors it says. Yeah. So I did not see that. So yeah,
but you noticed the lizards, which I didn't.
You noticed the lizards.
Well, the lizards are like plain and center.
I just saw it
background.
said Kurt Connors and was like, oh,
No.
it's
Okay.
So probably in the seconds that the two of us read Kurt Connors, you looked at the lizards.
Well, yeah. So because I didn't have the subtitles, I was obviously just looking around the room because it's an after
Wow,
credit
who
scene.
plays games without subtitles? It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, crazy guy.
That's crazy.
So after credit scene sets up obviously Green Goblin, Lizard, at least presumably villains, maybe other people.
So
Harry to come back.
Harry to come
so
back.
that means Harry's going to be Green Goblin, right?
I don't think so.
Who knows?
I don't know.
Because like
I mean, they both could be.
canonically he's this is the weird thing about the Osborn kind of.
Well, this is
because
Insomniac's Marvel
normally-
universe as well. So
Well, but that's the thing where it's because normally in comic book history, Harry is generally the Hobgoblin.
yeah,
But was it Amazing Spider-Man? It's the one I didn't watch, but Harry was Green Goblin.
yeah. I think they've been.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
Harry
Dane
was Green
DeHaan
Goblin.
one? Yep.
Yeah, I think because I didn't
Very
see
briefly.
that one. Yeah, it was number 2
In the Electrico one.
Yeah. So we're guessing for the next one. Yeah, it's going to be Green Goblin. And
There's going to be a
Lizard.
goblin.
There's going to be a goblin
least.
and presumably a lizard.
And Spider-Man is currently looking for a job. So Peter Parker. No, could they do that storyline again where Peter Parker goes to work for another professor, and that professor turns into something evil again? And
I
then,
mean, he could.
and Spider-Man looks at the camera and breaks the
He
fourth
could
wall
work
and
for
be like,
Oscorp.
"Not again!"
So I'm watching this now, and another thing just stood out to me as I'm watching this video on replay. At the start of it, when he's like Harry's looking down, it actually kind of looks like venomish strands around his body.
From memory, there was like symbiote, obviously, ties to that container from memory.
Okay.
At the end, in the first one. So I think that's why the symbiote suit wasn't in the original game.
Yeah, so they said that. Like, I remember seeing an interview, someone asked Insomniac, why didn't you put the symbiote suit in? And they're like, come on, don't ask silly questions. And that's obviously that means they plan to use Venom eventually.
So we could get the symbiote goblins lizard.
That seems to be what this is.
If you look at the end of where Oswald is like put his hands out on the thing, he looks like he's covered in symbiote strands as well.
Yeah. And I just scrolled through the comments of this for the first time, and lots of people are saying that looks like Venom. So there you go. I fucking should read comments before pressing play on videos, and I should put subtitles on. That's what I've fucking learned in the last. I mean, we're learning things as recording, so that's fine. Yeah, so that seems to hint towards Venom.
There's also other hints, like post in the epilogue. If you swing around, Peter calls Miles a bunch of times, talking about different things. Notably, he's moving into Aunt May's house now. He's redoing the kitchen and the bathroom.
Oh, nice. Go off.
So, maybe that's the opening minigame for the
possibly
the sequel.
Last question then. So after this, do you reckon in Marvel Spider-Man 2, presuming that of course it'll go back to Peter Parker being the lead, do you reckon they're just going to have you play as Miles in random levels, or like they're going to save Miles for his own adventures now, or it's going to be like a more evenish mix of between Peter Parker and Miles? Will you be able to switch the characters on the go if you want to for certain missions? Like, where do you reckon they go now? Because there's so many options.
I think they've put such the effort in establishing Miles as his own character now that he very much can be they can be equal parts in Peter and Miles. The only thing is, all three of those villains scream more personally directed towards Peter than it is for Miles to be that involved with it.
Yeah, for sure. So but it's like, are they just going to ignore Miles or sideline him or not? You know what I mean? Like,
no, he's going to be busy doing his own stuff.
Okay.
Remember, this game took place during winter break.
Yes, he's got school.
Miles has got to go to school. So, But
I just mean because in the original game, obviously you played as Miles.
Peter can skip work.
You played as Miles. You played as MJ. Yeah, just those.
But you never played as Miles as Spider-Man.
No, but I mean, does that mean you're going to play as Miles as Spider-Man in a sequel? Like if you played as him as a
I think
civilian?
there might be. I think there might be a cool moment or something. And sections that will require you to play as Miles. Like, I don't see why they can't do that. It's just that's the only reason I would say it's going to be mainly Peter, is just because of those three villains themselves are very Peter centric.
I'd much prefer to have Miles focused games.
Yeah,
coming regularly.
I just don't want Miles focused games to always be these shorter games.
No,
like
that's my thing. Like he deserves a full game as much as Peter does, in my opinion. Like there's no.
This is a full game.
No, you know what I mean.
You just said you love the length of it.
I do, but people are still going to look at this as a spin-off and not a proper title.
It's like a mid installment. Like it's like an extra chapter to the first one. Like that's entirely why they packaged it in with the remaster of Spider-Man 1.
Yeah. Oh, that's because they wanted to make more money. Anyway,
this is like Rogue One. Miles Morales is like Rogue One to the Star Wars,
which is a full movie,
but it's not a proper Star Wars installment.
Anyway, let's wrap this up.
Can I just say I really dislike the Prowler Soundbite missions. They were the one thing I disliked the most.
Oh, really? I thought they were kind of fun.
I thought they had so much fun with those.
Yeah.
No, it was just too much. trying to find the perfect point to stand far away from the bell.
Yeah, I thought they were kind of fun.
The only one I had problems with was the boat. Like, there was one for a boat off the shore, and I was like, where the fuck do I stand for this boat?
Yeah.
But other than that, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you have to stand in exactly the right spot.
Let me ask you this question.
For a character that can go, like, any elevation possible.
Here's the question. Were you playing with headphones on when you were playing Spider-Man?
Yes.
No, because I thought... Because the 3D audio, which is a whole different thing, obviously for the PS5, I thought has proven to be very fucking good so far, and I thought it actually made those sequences a lot easier than they would have been with just using like TV audio.
I'm excited for like eventually when I get my freaking PlayStation ones next year at some point. I'll be excited to use headphones for that kind of thing, but I didn't this time.
Wrapping up thoughts, Ciaran?
This game's fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed Miles. Like I can't speak more highly of how much I really love Miles as a character. Even just down to it, I think I mentioned this very briefly on Plat or Arcade Couch, that even down to his swinging animations, I just loved his swinging animations every time. It didn't feel like there was just a copy and paste of Peter swinging. It was very much this is Miles' style of swinging that's very all over the place and like more acrobatic and just weird kind of angles and body shapes that he does.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed Miles. I enjoyed exploring his world. I loved being back in the Spider-Man universe. So I hope I hope Spider-Man 2 isn't that long away, because this game was so much fun. Because this was really good to. Did you both have that moment of kind of that first moment where you have to swing as Miles, and I had that moment of, fuck, I've really missed just swinging around places in New York as Spider-Man. Like, this was just always so much fun in the first.
It's a thing they mastered, and I feel like maybe that kind of helped get this game out faster than it would have if they had to make it all from scratch. Because obviously, I feel similar to Kratos' axe. Obviously, a lot of time was put into that swinging mechanic and getting that down pat. And obviously, Miles' swinging is slightly different to Peter's, but it's still the core.
The mechanics of you doing it is exactly
it's something they mastered with the first game. I feel it's not something they really need to fuck around with for any future sequels. It feels pretty damn good to me. Any wrapping up thoughts, Ash?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Obviously, museums, big thing in 2020 apparently. Yeah. Running around in museums as a young child. Even then, Finn was a bad influence. Getting Miles to break into the room.
Hey, can I say, what kind of museum just lets you walk up and pick something up and walk away with it?
Yeah, I know.
They literally walk up.
Sure, there was free stickers, but then there's this programmable matter that's a prototype.
Which you walk up to and she goes, don't let anyone see. And then you just grab it in front of like 10 people. Which, by the way, shout out to that scene because I thought it was really cool how Peter and
Oswald, freaking Doc
Ock are there, and that was kind of cool. Yeah.
Cool bit. Also, shout out to Genki, best friend the entire time, taking care of your mum the entire time. Kind of weird a little bit, but
he's a champ. Yeah, it's a
champ.
Yeah, I love this as well. I think it's very rock solid. It was along with other PS5 launch games. It's just like kind of cemented the PS5 launch lineup to be really great in my mind. Having this along with some other stuff. Miles is just over Peter for me at this stage. That's the other thing. I can't. I just want more Miles at this stage, then I want more Peter. That's a good problem to have. I feel like that means they've done a good.
Will say by the end of this game, New Face Peter was just Peter Parker.
Yeah, that's another
have
thing.
That feel. I didn't feel like by the end of this game, I still wasn't like, that's not Peter.
That opening shot, and I was like, that looks different. And then by the time he popped up at the end in the flashback sequence of the museum, I didn't even blink. I was used to it.
It's interesting to see the people who have played through the remastered have obviously approved of the new Peter.
Well, I booted up. I played the first mission of that last night of the remastered, by the way, and I was like, this is fine. Like, this face is fine. Everything's fine. People are fucking crybabies. Anyway, so that's the thing. They'll do it for this week's, or this, whatever. They'll do it for this week's, this today's, this month's, this fucking year's, whatever. Marvel Spider-Man, Miles Morales. Spoiler discussion. Hope you've enjoyed it. You can check out more of our content, of course, at explosionhour.com. Subscribe to Arcade Couch if you're not already. Subscribe to Platinum Explosion if you're not already. Check out Spider-Man, my Miles Morales review if you want to hear what I gave and some more thoughts. Check out that, explosionhour.com. And until next time, I don't know. Webs.
No, we got to do the
Spider-Man oath.
The Spider-Man oath. Too sweet.
Bringing the light with a nice love. I shine on. See it coming, I don't need a sign. Just the moment I'ma make it mine. This is my time now. My time.